Thank you for all three of you setting the scene for our two-day event. We're going to go now to our first panel discussion, and the entitlement of this is From Research to the Real World, so driving CCAM towards market and societal uptake. And we're acknowledging that research alone might not be enough to get us to where we need to go. These standalone projects might not be tied up enough in order to develop the real connected, cooperative and automated mobility that we want to see. So, of course, investment in R&I is needed, but we also need to see a collaboration to really bring scale up so that you can deliver market-ready products. This is scale up to the real world. It's not just theories and projects and talking about what might work. We're going to try and talk about what will work. It's a complex area and it's got a very long lead time. It's a long process carried out over multiple funding frameworks. We all know that. So we're going to talk about that. We have a great team of people, and I'm delighted to see joining us. Our first speaker on this panel is Rosalind van der Vlies, who is DG RTD Director for Clean Planet in the European Commission. Rosalind, I'll let you sit here. I'd also like to welcome to the stage Armin Greiter, the CCAM Association Chair at BMW. Paloma Abba-Garota is the Executive Director at the European Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. André Engelvik is Executive Vice President of Radical Innovation at Ruter, the public transport in Oslo. And Jane Lappin comes from the other side of the pond to give us insight into the US as Chair of the US Transport Research Board's Vehicle Highway Automation Committee. Thank you very much, Jane. Quite a mouthful of a title, but we're delighted to have you all here. Now, as I said in my introduction, the theme is about real-world deployment. It's not about theoretical concepts. It's about acknowledging how we take the R&I that we seem to see is quite strong and turn that into something concrete on the roads. Rosalind, let me start with you. I'll get a few opening words from each of you before we delve into the discussion.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. I'm extremely excited. I've been looking forward to this moment for many, many months now, and it's really great to see all of you, and I'm sure we will have a very, very exciting days ahead of us, including seeing some really amazing developments. So from the Commission side, it's very clear that CCAM is one of our key strategic priorities for our research and innovation program, but also, of course, because CCAM is a very, very important concept also to deliver on our key strategic priorities for the European Union. And it's very clear that with the European Green Deal, and you've heard it already before, we have set ourselves on a very clear pathway to transition. But also it will be very important not to forget the societal dimension and to make sure that we leave nobody behind. And I think with the CCAM opportunities that we have, especially combined with smart mobility, with trafficking systems, we can really make sure that we make the roads of the European Union a more friendly, more livable place. We can reduce congestion, and we can also make sure that more remote areas in the European Union and certain users that are currently struggling, especially to use cars themselves, can have new opportunities. So this is why we are really very, very pleased that we have a partnership with the CCAM community under Horizon Europe. And when we set up the program of Horizon Europe, I mean, we have been partnering with industry for a very long time in our framework programs. But with Horizon Europe, we really wanted to do something a bit different. Because the opportunities that we have to partner with industry is really to make sure that we have a common vision, a common strategic research and innovation agenda. But we also wanted to make sure that the partnerships that we are having are open. And I think the CCAM partnership is a very good example of the openness where we have the whole community joining. And this is really very, very important because to solve a certain challenge, we cannot do this in isolation, and we really need to connect with a wide range of different stakeholders, of different industries. And I think that the CCAM partnership is really doing that, to bring together, you know, a big community of very motivated and interested stakeholders. And so I think we can be really very proud of what we have achieved so far with the CCAM partnership. So, of course, research and innovation is a key component to deliver on this big challenge. But of course, research and innovation cannot be seen in isolation. And for us, it's really very important that we connect better the dots between the different initiatives that we are funding, not only in the context of Horizon Europe, but also between Horizon Europe and other programs. Because we need, of course, to make sure that we maximize the impact of the money that we invest in research and innovation, and that we make sure that together with the industry we leverage the impact, but also we have been really encouraging our partnerships of Horizon Europe to work better together. This is what we use the buzzword synergies for. And I think we have been very, very successful, and I'm really very pleased in a recent topic that we have in our work program that will be bringing together the CCAM community with the 2.0 partnership and the cities mission. This is really, for us, really very great to see that this topic has been received with great enthusiasm. So we will have to be extremely selective in finding really the right consortia here for this, but it has been extremely popular. So this is certainly a practice that we will be continuing also in the future to really bring together the different partnerships also with missions where possible. And of course to make sure that we connect better the dots between the research and innovation community and the deployment opportunities that we have. And I hope that my colleague Paloma will say a bit more about that. So I think from the Commission perspective, we have a very clear strategy. We know where we want to go. We have the Smart Sustainable Mobility Strategy. We want a massive deployment by 2030. We have investment programs at our disposal. We have Horizon Europe. We have many other programs that also support the deployment. Here we are also trying to better connect the dots between these programs. But what is most important for us is that we have the support of you all, of the stakeholder community, because I think only if we work together and we have a common vision and common objectives, we will be able to deliver. Thank you.
Well, I think, well, round of applause, yes. Thank you. I mean, well, that's the public side. Tell us, Armin, a bit about the private side. Yeah, is it working?
Does it work? Yeah, well, okay, thank you. Hello from my side as well. Thank you, Jennifer and Rosalinde, for introducing this panel. I'm very happy to be here as well. Remembering back the 2019 EUCAD conference, where there was no partnership yet. I was here from my air truck role for connected automated driving, as we called it at that time. Now we also switched in air truck to CCAM because it's obvious that these overall mobility view on road transport is the key message of the partnership. Saying this, I'd like to go back a bit from Horizon 2020 and air truck projects and work. I've seen a lot of alignment in the community. If I think about the first meetings of the CCAM platform, at that time we really struggled to find a common field of research and innovation. We talked about urban air mobility. We talked about train, rail links, which should have been at the beginning from some ideas much stronger than they are now. So we see that we have a very good focus and limitations, which helps us to focus on what is possible on road transport, really. So I'm very happy to see this much more alignment happening. And I'm also very happy to see having already now, we didn't ever expected that, more than 200 members in the CCAM partnership. So the CCAM association is growing and growing, and there's no month when we can invite new members. So it's really a big pleasure and an honor for me to lead this activity for the whole community of all sectors, being not only private sector, but also authorities from national member states being partners in the partnership and in the association. So there are two things which I'd like to mention in a bit more detail, which is on the one side that we are now doing an update of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. We will have a separate session this afternoon on that, so please stay here for the afternoon and then join us also on the evening with the EUCAD reception. I'd like to really see a lot of discussions around the update of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda this afternoon, which focuses a lot on large-scale demonstration. And really, it's important to distinguish between demonstration and deployment. So we are hoping to have very good projects. We have heard from Nikolai already, thank you for that, on level 3 pilot and high drive, which were already very good demonstration projects. And we are continuing this story now together with the cities mission in this call 2023. And this is one important link where we not only combine with the cities mission, but also have a joint topic with the 2.0 partnership, which was also mentioned by Nikolai. And we have another area where 2.0 and CCAM are really combining forces. It's about the key digital technologies, which will in the future be also under the CHIPS Act, which looks into the software-defined vehicle. So software standards of the future in Europe is one key challenge for the automotive industry. Saying this, I'm very happy to be here. And I'd also like to repeat what Sinja said in her first speech. We are really seeing that the projects which have been rolled out under the partnership are really being part of a bigger picture. We have done now 3 big meetings with far more than 100 people inviting the projects, and they all came with their coordinators and key people to present their in-between results, or even to present how they start their projects, because they really want to feel being a bigger picture. So it's definitely a different world than the calls before we had the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Paloma, I said at the beginning, research alone won't get us to where we want to be by 2030, but without the research, we won't be anywhere. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, first, I would like to say that, CINEA being the agency who is in charge of implementing, the European Green Deal, we are very much, supporting the idea that the smart mobility service like CCAM, are key to contributing to climate neutrality. Because it will help to reduce CO2. But I mean, this is not only, about research, it's about bringing the results into the market. And that's why we think that this agency exists, because in our agency, we are focusing on all funding programs from research into the market uptake. And therefore, if we start with research, I mean, you are very much aware of the Horizon 2020 and the Horizon Europe program, where we have financed, I would say until now about 3.7 billion euros on more than 600 projects. And some of these projects, have been, have as a subject topics which have been co-designed with the CCAM partnership. For example, in the last 2 years, we are financing around 18 projects for around 150 million euros of EU support. And these, large-scale projects have allowed to demonstrate that there is safe and efficient automated driving, truck platooning, also human-machine interface, and also autonomous shuttle for public transport. But as I said, we do not only give support during the research, but we also, give support to navigate this death valley between research into market uptake. And this is where the Connecting Europe facility has come in our way. And that's a very important program of the European Union. It's basically, financing high-performing, sustainable infrastructure. And for example, in the last years, we have supported, with around 700 million, a number of projects, mostly on smart and mobility, for example, including cooperative intelligent transport systems. And that's very important because, we are just financing the infrastructure which will pave the way for the deployment of CCAM solutions. So this is where, we are saying, well, we will try to bring synergies. When projects have the right readiness technology level, then the Connecting Europe facility can help to support financially all these projects to go into the next stage. And that's what we are calling about synergies, and this is where, the agency is trying to promote those synergies, but also, knowledge sharing between all of you. So, for example, if you are interested, there is a session today on synergies, and we can talk more how we can, from the European Union and then, European Commission, the agency as well, support you in all these financial issues. So in conclusion, I would say that, we have a number of financing programs that can help you to deploy all your results once they are mature.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Mentioning quite a lot of different opportunities there, I think. We'll talk about how to seize those in a little bit. Andre, you're not just in charge of innovation, but in charge of radical innovation. So I suppose your job in this panel is to blow our minds with some out there thoughts. So tell us something radical.
Am I on? Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity. Radical innovation should potentially be a topic in itself because it generates a bunch of different discussions about doing innovation. Won't get too far into that, but we have been working on autonomous vehicles and trying to use them, get them on the road and actually create effects for more than 6 years already as a public transit authority in Oslo, Norway. And it's important to understand that we are out to replace private car usage. We're not out to automate public transit. That's something different. The reason for replacing private car journeys is that electrification isn't enough on the sustainability agenda. We know this in Norway because we're almost done with electrification and we're not meeting our climate goals. It's not enough. We need to share more. Generates a big discussion on compromises and other stuff. I won't go into all of that, but that's just to sort of give you the background on where we come from. I'm actually currently very frustrated because there is technology available globally that could get me hundreds and thousands of vehicles operating at level 4 without a safety driver. That technology is out there today. I can't get my hands on it. I can't find it in Europe. Might be a few nuances, but if I want to do 80 or 90 kilometers an hour, open roads, mixed traffic, and I have been in those vehicles. I've ridden with them. Open commercial services available on the ground in the United States. Go to Chandler, ride with Waymo. Go to San Francisco, ride with Cruise. China is a little more difficult, but we had agents out there also riding in Chinese services. I've ridden with Chinese technology in demonstration, for demonstration purposes, not as commercial services. They would come tomorrow if I could invite them. We're lagging. So, what should we be focusing on? To our mind, and of course this is us, we have already driven more than 40,000 kilometers fully autonomously with safety drivers in vehicles, because we're not quite there yet. We've transported more than 30,000 paying passengers on open roads in mixed traffic. Everything we have done as a public transit authority has been open roads, mixed traffic. And we're really seriously looking for what's next. And we believe that if Europe is going to move forwards on this, we need to radically, to invoke that word, put fleets of vehicles on the ground at a grand scale, and then put everything around those fleets to help them succeed. But start with the fleets. If I could have 500 vehicles in Oslo in 12 months, we'd be cheering all the way. And who would help me enable that? Or who's going to explain to me all the problems I'm going to have before I can get to that point? All the things we need to sort out before we can do that. And this might sound like semantics, but it's actually a mindset. What is actually the goal? How hard are we pushing for that? And that comes back to, again, to the climate agenda. And for anyone listening to the IPCC on their latest announcement, we need to do everything, everywhere, in parallel. We can leave nothing behind, and we can't lag on anything. So I'm really looking forward to who can get me the fleet. And I haven't lost track of the 24-25 timeline that somebody was talking about. If I could convince Waymo to bring me 500 vehicles in 12 months, which they could if they wanted to, or Cruise, which is building a complete factory, you're probably going to kill me afterwards, but they're building factories to build vehicles for this stuff. Could they bring the numbers? Yeah. Is the technology perfect today? Most likely and not entirely. How do we move it at warp speed? Not figure out everything first and then do it afterwards. So, then I'll put it out there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm actually reminded of what the science fiction writer William Gibson said, which is that the future's already here. It's not very evenly distributed. So I think this is about how we distribute it more evenly. Jane, give us the perspective. We heard a few comments about what's happening in the US, but give us where do you see the differences?
Thank you. Am I live? Yeah, good. Thank you for inviting me to address you. It's an honor to be here, particularly as your token representative from the market economy of the United States, where we tolerate quite a bit of risk, which is, I think, your point. I've been asked to talk about how do we bridge the valley of death, bridging from the hype cycle, the height of the hype cycle, to actually commercial deployment. And the US has taken a very different approach to the development of highly automated vehicles from what you have in Europe. Following the federally funded DARPA challenge of 2007, the US has followed a market-driven approach to the development of highly automated vehicles, beginning notably with a significant investment, a private sector investment from Google in a self-driving car project that then became Waymo, and whose original team then spawned a dozen or so other automated vehicle companies like Aurora, Zoox, and Argo. This means that the burden of investment in the US lies with the capital markets, with the investment bankers, not with the federal governments or the kinds of large government and private partnerships that have been created here. It means that the burden of proof for commercial viability, including safety assurance, remains with the AV developers. We do not have any large-scale federally funded partnership projects like L3 Pilot or HiDrive that intentionally create diverse partnerships for the purpose of shared learning and societal progress. Coming back to the hype cycle, if the rate of AV innovation had proven to be as rapid as some very influential people like Carlos Ghosn of Nissan Renault and Mark Fields of Ford, like they predicted in 2015, we'd be having a very different discussion today about hype cycle, return on investment, and highly automated driving systems. But because the rate of AV innovation did not match the revenue expectations of investors like Ford, and because there is strong competition for capital, we've seen significant consolidation among AV tech companies. In Ford's case, with Argo, Ford needed that cash to reinvest in its main business. Other AV companies have recently come to the end of their money before coming to the emergence of their product. Many investors thought they would get a faster return on their AV investment. They can now see better, faster ROI opportunities in the energy-related sectors, like electric vehicles and battery innovation. So that's where a lot of the money is flowing. This brings us to the valley of death, that deep trough in the hype cycle where expectations overshoot reality, and to our moderator's opening question of how to bridge this gap between research output and market uptake of innovative solutions. Because the US has taken a market-driven approach to the development of automated vehicles, our path through Death Valley is different than yours here in the US. Our major AV field tests are happening on public roads with private funding through agreements and contracts among the AV companies like Waymo and Cruise, with trucking companies, retail stores, the state departments of transportation, the state lawmakers and regulators. It all gets a little tense with these vehicles on the road, and particularly in cities like San Francisco, where US cities lack regulatory authority to govern automated vehicles, even though they have to manage the impact of these vehicles on operations. And for example, when the vehicles drive over fire hoses, or the automated vehicles fail to recognize the authority of law enforcement, or the vehicles get in the way and interfere with public transport. In the US, we are learning as we go. We're accepting risk, tolerating the ambiguity, and for better or worse. How will US AV companies bridge the Death Valley gap between research output and market update? I would reframe that question for the US and ask whether current AV developer companies will achieve revenue operations before they run out of money and their investors run out of patience.
Thank you, Jane. So, Rosalind, the word product has come up several times here. What product are we bringing to market? So just to play devil's advocate, I mean, we heard from Andre a bit about the fleets of public transport we might be interested in, but there is an argument that somehow we're just creating very expensive toys for people who can afford them. How do you cope with that? How do you make sure that, as we say, this is more equally spread?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a bit of a provocative question, but I think it's really a very important one. And I was really, very interested by Jane and her speech. I think it's really very, very interesting to see, the difference of approach in the US and in Europe. And it's very clear, that we are co-investing with the industry as a public administration because we are confident that, with CCAM we are delivering societal benefits. So this is not, a toy for, a few happy rich people that we are co-investing in. This is really, we are firmly convinced that CCAM will have a lot of societal benefits. And I think the beauty here is because, we have been very focused on, our climate ambitions and, we talked about the IPCC synthesis report and it's very clear. But if you look at the recent Eurobarometer results, I think the concerns of the citizens in Europe, the number one concern now is really affordability. And I think, with CCAM, it also has a very strong societal dimension where not only we will be able to make our roads more livable, less congested, to make our cities more breathable, but also to make sure that we are delivering services for people living in remote areas and people, with certain disabilities. So I think this is really a very good example where CCAM has a clear opportunity for big societal benefits on the human side, on the environmental side, so for people and for the planet. And this is why, we in Europe have taken the approach to co-invest with the industry as a public administration.
Well, Armin, as the industry side, I mean, what more can you be saying? I mean, you talked a lot about the benefits of CCAM and joined up thinking and working together in public-private partnerships, but there must be more that can be done. Is it just about more funding to help overcome technological problems? Is it about information? Is it about societal buy-in? Where do you see an organisation like the European Commission or even national authorities at member state level can help?
I wouldn't say, or even I would say yes, both. and more money is always good, but this is not the key of the message. What I'd like to say is that investing in technology, Nikolai mentioned this already in his speech, is a much higher amount. So we talked about 56 billion per year from the automotive industry. We are talking now about around a few hundred million per year in the area of CCAM and 2.0. So this is a relation, and it's good to have this relation, and it's good to have it at all. This is the point. So what we are really earning from it, and for example, Arja Etemat from Volkswagen and many others made this statement in earlier conferences as well, so I'd like to only repeat it, that with these publicly funded projects, and especially when combining national and European funding and agreement and support to find the right solutions to come up with standardization and regulation on this basis is the key asset of these projects. So we really need to get the right framework so that the private investments, which are much higher in all these areas, are coming to a fruitful basis and having really the opportunity to not only support the financial health of the companies, but also to support the societal needs and aspects. So to be in line and together, and CEF is a very good example to really bridge the gap, which was also mentioned. I think this is one of the key assets, and maybe I may mention also one initiative which is not yet so formal established, but a corridor which is much more than the ITS corridor everybody knows, but a corridor on digital and charging infrastructure all over Europe would be also a very good opportunity to again combine forces from research, innovation, deployment, and industry side to find better flows of standardization, regulation coming to products and coming to fulfilling societal needs.
Well, our next panel discussion after the break is going to be on ITS, so I think we'll be talking about corridors a lot there. Andre, let me bounce back to you. You mentioned that you could probably get the vehicles if there were not so many barriers. Where do you see those barriers, and how can regulation perhaps overcome them? Because if it's a societal barrier, that's a very different prospect than if it's something regulatory. Perhaps in Oslo, people are happy to give up their personal vehicles, but I know other countries, there'd be rioting in the streets of Malta if you suggested people couldn't have private cars. So it's very different culturally from other parts of Europe. How do you get everyone on a level playing field? Can we get everyone on a level playing field?
I think we can. And again, coming back to a key point for me that I most likely will be reiterating for a long time and have been already, we need to get the fleets out there so people can actually experience it. Do a quick poll, and this is not to embarrass anyone. How many have actually ridden with Waymo or Cruise in their Opel commercial services or any of the Chinese? Raise your hand. Wow, this is the biggest uptake I've had in any place I've asked this question. I've been a few, and it's not a huge number, even in this audience.
It's a quite unique audience you've got.
Exactly.
Here.
And even in this audience, it's a small percentage. Really shows that we need to bring it on the ground and show it to people. And I think one of the dilemmas in Europe is that we would so much like to do it ourselves with our own things that if we're going to spend €1 billion or a couple of billion euros, buy shares in Waymo, get a seat at their board and force them to bring the tech here, and then we'll do all the other stuff around. Because that would seriously move it. And that's spending slightly differently, but it could have a bigger impact and move stuff faster. Doesn't leave Europe behind in any way. So it might be more commercial than regulatory. On the benefits side, though, to ensure societal benefits, make it part of the public transportation services. Put it into that definition space and move it out of the individual car space. And to be very blunt, any privately owned future autonomously driving car level 4 or more or something like that, not going into that discussion, if that drives around empty, we need to ban it. Because that's kilometers driven on the road with no extra added value for any societal dimension whatsoever. Those two key regulatory points should be driving the policies forwards, and then we shouldn't be scared of bringing in stuff from the outside.
Thank you. Paloma, let me come back to you and ask you about the messaging around climate and whether this is going to be able to feed into overcoming some of these societal barriers, if you think that people are experiencing. And also then tell us a little bit going forward about what will be the role of SINEA and the CCAM partnership in the selection of future projects.
Well, first I will hope that, we have still quite a budget to be spent in the next few years, both in Horizon Europe and also in the Connecting Europe facility. I hope we will be able to continue supporting those projects in the future, those projects related to CCAM. So I think that already, Sidje in her opening speech mentioning a call. So yes, this conference has come at the right moment. Tomorrow we are opening a call on Horizon Europe, and within this call we will financing 5 topics relevant to CCAM, and this will have a budget of around 150 million euros. Also in September, we have a new call on the Connecting Europe facility. We hope to be able to frame, if I recall correctly, around 400 million, which are reserved for smart and interoperable mobility. This includes CITS, includes new technologies, data exchange, and also electronic freight transport. So, I hope that the European Green Deal will continue to be a priority for the Commission in the next few years, and therefore, all kind of projects which are focused on, trying to be safe but also efficient, and therefore, helping us to reduce CO2 emissions, will be continued to be supported by the European Union.
Jane, I'd like you to look into your crystal ball a little bit and tell me what your predictions are for if you like, for 2030 or even the next shorter term for the US. What will the funding landscape look like? What will the uptake landscape look like?
I don't have a crystal ball.
Oh, dear. What are your predictions, though?
It's really very hard to predict. What we're seeing at the moment in the US is the evolution of islands of opportunity opportunities to put commercial vehicles into commercial service without a driver in the cab in Texas, in Arizona, in Nevada, where the regulations and the states will allow these operations, where the operating environment is less challenging and where they can operate during hours when they are the least likely to have an interaction with a human-driven vehicle. These are islands of opportunity in San Francisco, in Phoenix, in Michigan, for passenger vehicles, which will evolve into driverless taxis and revenue service. Currently in revenue service, actually, Cruise and Waymo in San Francisco, Waymo in Phoenix and Chandler. As islands, they are, I wouldn't say that San Francisco is a particularly easy ODD, but it's an important opportunity. And so I think that we'll see further urban islands emerge. Florida, Texas, Pittsburgh. We see delivery vehicles, the small delivery vehicles, again, islands of opportunity where the operating environment, the social environment, the commercial environment are sufficiently welcome, sufficiently safe, so that they can begin commercial revenue operations. So to the extent that I have an occluded crystal, maybe a little cracked, that would be how I would generalize from what we see presently going forward.
I like this phrase, islands of opportunity, Rosalind, but it reminds me a little bit of a fragmented single market that we sometimes talk about here in Brussels. Are we in islands of opportunity in Europe as well, and how do we maybe get them to link up? And also specifically, what is the Commission doing to connect with authorities and regulators on national levels?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jane, I don't have a crystal ball either, and I love indeed the expression islands of opportunity. I mean, I think, you know, you have already a few examples in Europe, like in Germany, where you see, you know, progressive deployment. I heard that there are people in traffic jams able to read their emails. And I have to say, I was on Monday, which was an amazing day off. I went to visit my family in the Netherlands, which is a 1.5-hour drive. And coming back, it took me 4 hours. So I would have loved to have been able to read my emails because I was there in a huge traffic jam. So I think, you know, gradually we are progressing. And of course, I mean, we have set ourselves for the Commission in our smart and sustainable mobility strategy, you know, our target to have large-scale deployments by 2030. Now, of course, you know, we are working towards that target. But I think it will be extremely important, and this is actually, I think, one of the strengths of Europe, is that collaboration is in our DNA. I mean, the whole European project was built on collaboration. And this is why, you know, in the context of the partnership, we have a state representative group where we are bringing in all the member states into the partnership work. And as Armin mentioned, we already have also national authorities, full members of the partnership. But in the state representative group that is part of the partnership, we are bringing together all the member states to really make sure that we keep track also at what's happening at the national level, that we make sure that there is a proper exchange so that countries know what's going on, not only in terms of national investments, but also on the regulatory side. And I think from the Commission side, we have given a very clear political signal that, you know, we are fully behind the development of CCAM. We have this as part of our smart and sustainable mobility strategy. We are investing in this through different programs with upcoming opportunities, as Paloma mentioned. I do think it will be extremely important for us to see, you know, what is the next step and what can the Commission do. And I'm extremely inspired by Andre, actually. I really love your message of urgency. And, you know, I mean, this is basically a message to all of you. You know, the Commission is fully supportive. So, you know, if there's anything that we can do from the Commission side to speed up further, to accelerate, I mean, we would love to hear from you and move this forward. As I said, you know, with the partnership, including with the state representative group, we have a very important framework where we can have discussions, you know, with the industry community and with the member states. So, yeah, I mean, I share your sense of urgency and I hear also your frustration, like, you know, let's get it out there. And I just want to say that from the Commission side, politically we are supportive and let's see, you know, what the next step should be in Europe.
And of course, the next couple of days are an opportunity to get feedback. And we are at the point where I think we can take some questions from the room, from the floor. If anyone would like to put a question to our panelists, just raise your hand. We have microphones on all the desks, but we have one, yes. If you could just give your name and to whom the question is directed.
Thank you. Steve Phillips, Conference European Directors of Roads. Andre, I really appreciated your message, and I think a lot of us in the room probably do share this sense of enthusiasm and moving forward. But, you're always supposed to not say but, aren't you? I was kind of interested for a number of things, because I think, you know, we have to be careful that we don't polarize, you know, the naysayers, all the problems, and the enthusiasts. So my specific question is, when you were asked how do you keep people on board, you referred to the audience and you said, okay, who's tried these vehicles? Now, my question to you, coming from the country on the planet with the lowest road fatality record, the safest country on the whole planet, my question is, apart from the users, who are one specific set, what is your plan to keep society, so the people, the press, the politicians, on board and avoid the risk that it's going to be a false start? You know, how can we support that, I guess?
It's a very good question. It's most likely a longer answer than we have time for right now. We have been putting vehicles on the ground and trying stuff for a number of years. And we've done the 15-kilometer shuttle, we all know them, frustrating bikers to the point where they'd almost do stuff. You should have seen the list of questions from the fire department when we were doing the first approvals. We're going into uncharted territory, and we need to do that. And I think you described it well. We need to accept that there is some risk in this, but we need to understand what's the common goal we're aiming for. And that's what is dawning on us in Norway. Electrification of the transportation system isn't enough. We need to get to more. So we do everything we can. We have visit schools, we have children naming vehicles, we invite everybody in. If we put vehicles on the ground, we'll say to all of the research community, it's here. You want to study something? You want to do something? We'll be a case for you guys, any way you want. We'll support that. But we're pushing for getting it on the ground to move. And all the rest sort of drags with it. And we haven't had any accidents or any dramatic stuff like that happen yet. Hopefully we won't, but who knows? But so far, pushing it forwards. And customer acceptance for everyone on board, they're feeling safer and safer, more and more accepting. Kids using it back and forth to school, parents happy about that. So get it out there and get it moving. I'm still there. A bunch of work to do along the way, yes.
Any other questions for our panel? Yes, one just here.
Yeah, my name is Christian Scharnost. Once more, a question to Andre, who seemed to encourage discussion a lot because of his bold statement. So I really wonder what Waymo's reasoning was. I understood that you approached them, motivated them, encouraged them to supply you a fleet, a decent fleet. And obviously, they are reluctant to follow you. So what is the statement? Why are they reluctant?
I'd truly love to be able to really answer that question. Unfortunately, I'm not inside their minds and not privy to their strategic assessments. But for anyone that has tried to connect with or talk in this space, Waymo is one of the hardest ones to get any kind of interaction with. Anyone that's tried in this space knows that. But there are ways, but it seems that they don't see Europe as an airtime market. They see it as something in the future. That's my best guess right now. If anyone has more intelligence or insights, I'd be really love to hear about it.
Okay, Jane has a quick insight.
Yeah, they're a private business. They have a business plan and they have limited assets. And so they are focused on developing their business plan, their product, and their rollout. And different markets have different priorities. Distance has an impact. Distance has a cost impact on that business plan and that rollout. And so I'm not Waymo, but I would suggest that something that simple would be influential in their decision making.
I totally agree with that. Am I on?
No, I think. Can we get you switched on?
No, okay. I totally agree with that. And it's very interesting to see that Waymo is talking about Japan, and they do have co-ownership with Japanese companies.
Okay, Amen.
It's a comment on this kind of what about the large fleet and well, we have learned in the last years and also with the big projects of again naming iDrive and L3 Pilot, but many others also, that there's a big difference in how to approach the technology, and typically the European industry follows a route which is going step by step. I know it's not a big bang of having cars out there that doing things completely different than any other things. What we are doing is step by step, and we knowing exactly what we are doing. So we don't need to be, hopefully it's safe. We know that it's safe when we come to the market with a new function. And we are just seeing the approach on the highway systems coming from adaptive cruise control in 2000, coming to the first combined functions in 2013, and now being on the step to level 3, even with a step in between, which is already in the market in US from many OEMs, hands-free driving, which is just coming to the market also here then. And level 3 on traffic jams, you can do other things while you are being driven, which will then have higher speeds. So there's one road going to highways, which is a quite not so complex traffic. And then we have the other side of parking, which is already also establishing. So big projects from industry with parking lot providers who are really doing driverless parking. So this is a very complex environment. So coming from very low speed complex environment to very high speed and simple traffic, and then combining both, we will have at last also the solutions. But this is an approach where we exactly know what we do. We are close to our customers. We are doing a business with it, and we will at last see who will succeed in this race. Nobody knows yet.
Everyone, hopefully. We have one last question. If you could keep it brief, because I don't want to stand between people and coffee for too much longer.
Okay. Yes, my name is Horst Flügel from AVL. Actually, I have two questions. The first one would be to Armin. What is the most important technology which is missing at the moment, or the biggest challenge to bring the automated cars to the road? And you can choose an example what you like. I know you experienced enough. But I have also a second question. Maybe I don't know if you have time, but to Andre, to the shared mobility. So if you're a fan of shared mobility, what hinders you to do the shared mobility with taxi drivers? They are already here, so you could implement that also. So is there not a possibility? So I don't know if this is more expensive with a driver than an automated car. You can maybe explain us.
Okay, again, shortly.
Very short. I think the key thing is, and this is again an advantage I think for Europe, how to balance between the intelligence in the vehicle and the intelligence in the cloud. This is the key question. Nobody knows yet. I think there are also different approaches in the US, also differentiating very much between Waymo and GM. This is the key question, and I think it's clear that from parking, it's very much infrastructure-based at the beginning. On the highway, it's clearly that the vehicle intelligence is in the lead. So combining both things, and this is a perfect thing to do it in European projects. So this is a very good opportunity.
Thank you. Andre, taxi drivers, thumbs up or thumbs down?
But possible to do, cost too much. If you have the money to actually execute that, cool. You'd employ a lot of people as well.
Okay, well, that was a brief answer. I did ask for a brief answer. Rosalind, would you like to give us a final wrap-up thought before we take a break? And what are you looking out for over the next day or so that you would like us to come away with by the end of tomorrow?
I would just like to thank my co-panelists for a very inspiring discussion, and I'm just very much looking forward also to see some action in real life, and I'm looking forward to the coffee as well.
Yes, the coffee is next. We will be back here for our next plenary discussion, which will be on enabling data for CCAM and beyond at 11 o'clock. While you're here, there's some vehicles outside. You can go and have a look at them, you should have time, and also check out the autonomous robot that is somewhere out here. We'll see you back at 11, and a big round of applause for our panellists. Hello again.